Commander Vexlar could not move. He could not speak. He simply stood on the bridge of his ship and stared at the destruction before him. 200 Cathari warships. 200 of the most feared vessels in the known galaxy. They floated in silence, broken and dead, like toys that had been smashed by an angry child. And in the middle of it all sat a single gray ship that was smaller than some of the escape pods drifting through the wreckage. "Commander," Shentok whispered. His voice was shaking. "What do we do?" Before Vexlar could answer, a light appeared on the communications console. Someone was trying to contact them. "Open the channel," Vexlar said. The main view screen flickered, and then a face appeared. It was a face that matched the ancient descriptions exactly. Soft skin, pale with a slight pink color. 2 forward-facing eyes that were a deep brown. A flat nose, and thin lips that were curved upward in a strange expression. Vexlar's cultural database told him this expression was called a smile. It was supposed to indicate happiness or friendliness. Why would someone smile at a time like this? "Commander," the creature said, "I am Captain Daniel Morrison of the United Earth Navy vessel Endeavor. I apologize for the mess. The Cathari were not interested in talking." Vexlar found his voice. "You destroyed them, all of them, with one ship." Morrison nodded. His smile did not waver. "We tried to warn them. Humans do not like bullies." Behind Morrison, Vexlar could see other humans moving around on their bridge. They worked at their stations with calm efficiency, as if they had not just done the impossible. A female human with dark hair tied behind her head watched a weapons console. Her nameplate read, Lieutenant Katie Reyes. A tall male human with wide shoulders checked a display screen near the back of the bridge. He was introduced as Chief Engineer Ryan Brooks. They all moved with a relaxed confidence that Vexlar found deeply unsettling. "How?" Vexlar asked. It was the only word he could manage. Morrison leaned back in his chair. The Cathari spent centuries developing armor that could resist energy weapons. Plasma, lasers, particle beams. Nothing could get through, so they stopped worrying about defense. They became arrogant. "And you found a way through their armor?" Morrison's smile grew wider. "We did not try to go through it. We went around it." He nodded to Lieutenant Reyes, who tapped a command on her console. The view screen split, showing Morrison on one side and a technical diagram on the other. "We take a chunk of metal, about the size of your fist, and we accelerate it to nearly the speed of light using magnetic fields. No heat, no energy signature, just a rock moving very, very fast." Vexlar studied the diagram. The concept was simple, almost too simple. Why had no one thought of it before? "The Cathari never saw it coming," Morrison continued. "Their sensors are designed to detect energy buildup. They did not know how to look for something so basic. By the time they realized what was happening, half their fleet was already gone." "And the other half?" Vexlar asked. Morrison's expression changed. The smile faded, replaced by something harder, something colder. "They tried to board us," he said. "They thought that if they could not destroy our ship, they could kill our crew in close combat. After all, the Cathari are famous for their warriors. 12 feet tall, 8 legs, armor that can stop a blade. What chance would soft little humans have against them?" He paused. "They learned." The view screen changed again, showing security footage from inside the Endeavor. Vexlar watched as a group of Cathari warriors broke through an airlock and charged down a corridor. They were terrifying creatures, all claws and teeth and dark armor. They made it perhaps 20 feet before the humans opened fire. The humans were small. They wore gray armor that covered their bodies, but did not make them look much larger. They carried weapons that seemed tiny compared to the massive guns the Cathari used. But they were fast. Faster than Vexlar had ever seen anyone move. They darted between cover, firing short bursts that found the gaps in the Cathari armor. They worked together with perfect coordination, covering each other, drawing the enemy into kill zones. When one human fell, the others did not panic. They simply adjusted their formation and kept fighting. The Cathari fell one by one, then 2 by 2, then in groups of 5 and 10. By the end of the footage, the corridor was filled with Cathari bodies. The humans stood among them, reloading their weapons and checking on their wounded. One human, a large male with blood running down his face, looked directly at the camera and gave a thumbs-up gesture. "We lost 3 Marines in that engagement," Morrison said. "The Cathari lost over 4,000. Vexlar felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. True, genuine fear. "Why?" he asked. "Why reveal yourselves now? You could have stayed hidden. You could have let the galaxy continue to believe you were extinct." Morrison stood up from his chair and walked closer to the camera. His eyes met Vexlar's through the view screen. "Because the Cathari are about to attack Colony Veshra. 30 million innocent civilians. Men, women, children. The Cathari plan to slaughter them all." "How do you know this?" "We have been watching for a long time, Commander. Hiding, rebuilding, waiting for the right moment to return. We have eyes and ears everywhere. We know things that would make the Concordat's intelligence services weep with jealousy." Morrison paused. "We could handle Veshra alone. We have done it before. We will do it again. But we thought perhaps this time things could be different. Perhaps this time we do not have to fight alone." "What are you suggesting?" Vexlar asked. "I am suggesting an alliance," Morrison said. "The Galactic Concordat has been fighting the Cathari for a century. You have been losing. We can help you win. All we ask in return is a seat at the table. Recognition. A chance to prove that the stories about humanity were wrong. And if the Concordat refuses, then we will fight the Cathari alone. We will win, and when the dust settles, the galaxy will have to deal with us, whether they like it or not. But I would prefer to make friends rather than enemies. Would you not agree?" Vexlar considered the offer. His training told him to be suspicious. His instincts told him to be afraid. This creature before him had just destroyed an entire fleet, with a ship that should not have been able to scratch the paint on a Cathari cruiser. But there was something in Morrison's eyes. Something that reminded Vexlar of himself when he was younger. A desire to protect. A need to fight for something greater than himself. "I will contact the High Council," Vexlar said finally. "I cannot promise anything, but I will deliver your message." Morrison smiled again. This time, it reached his eyes. "Thank you." The view screen went dark. Vexlar stood in silence for a long moment, staring at the dead Cathari fleet. Then he turned to Shentok. "Send a priority message to High Command," he said. "Tell them we need an emergency summit. Tell them the humans have returned." He paused. "And tell them they are nothing like the stories said." The galaxy had never seen anything like the debate that followed Maria's discovery. For 6 months, the Galactic Concord argued about what to do with the portal. Meetings were held on space stations, on distant planets, on ships traveling between stars. Every species had an opinion. Every species had a demand. The Sindari wanted the portal to remain closed. They said it was too dangerous, that whatever was on the other side could destroy civilizations. But everyone knew the real reason. They could not accept that humans had succeeded where they had failed. The Valorians wanted humans to share the portal with everyone. They said it was unfair for one species to control access to such an important artifact. They promised to help, to contribute resources and knowledge, if only humans would let them through. The Kreth wanted to study the portal more before anyone went through. They said there were still too many questions, too many unknowns. They built complicated models and ran millions of simulations, but they could not predict what would happen when the portal finally opened. And the humans? They just wanted to know what was on the other side. Daniel spent the 6 months training. He volunteered to lead the first expedition through the portal, and Admiral Kim approved his request. If anyone was going to step into the unknown, it should be someone who had been there from the beginning. Maria trained with him. So did Nathan, and a team of 12 other humans. They practiced for every situation they could imagine. They learned to survive without food, without water, without air. They studied the technology of every known species in case they needed to fight. They prepared for everything, even though they knew they could not truly prepare for anything. "What do you think we will find?" Maria asked Daniel one night. They were sitting in the observation deck, watching the portal glow faintly in the darkness. "I do not know," Daniel admitted. "Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Maybe something we cannot even understand." "Are you afraid?" Daniel thought about the question. "Yes," he said finally. "But I am more curious than afraid. Whatever is on the other side, it has been waiting for us. For thousands of years, it has been waiting. I want to know why." Maria nodded. "Me too." The day of the expedition arrived on a cold morning. The station was filled with observers from every species in the Concord. Cameras broadcast the event to billions of viewers across the galaxy. History was about to be made, and everyone wanted to watch. Daniel stood before the portal, with his team behind him. He wore a special suit, designed by engineers from 12 different worlds. It could protect him from heat, cold, radiation, and vacuum. It could keep him alive for 30 days without food or water. It was the most advanced piece of technology humans had ever worn. But standing before the ancient stone, Daniel felt very small. Admiral Kim's voice came through his earpiece. "You do not have to do this, Commander. We can send a probe first, get some data, before we risk human lives." Daniel shook his head, even though she could not see him. Probes cannot shake hands. If there is someone on the other side, they deserve to meet us in person. That is the whole point, is it not? Caring about those we have never met. There was a pause. Then Kim said, "Good luck, Daniel. All of Earth is watching." Daniel stepped forward and placed his palm against the cold black stone. The golden light erupted from the portal, brighter than ever before. It spread across the entire ring, filling every symbol, turning the ancient stone into a sun. The watchers gasped. Some of them stepped back in fear. And then the center of the portal changed. The empty space inside the ring, which had been nothing but darkness for 3,000 years, began to shimmer. It rippled like water disturbed by a dropped stone. Colors appeared, swirling and mixing, forming patterns that hurt the eyes to look at. And then there was a doorway. Through the doorway, Daniel could see stars. Not the stars above Kethros 7, but different stars, arranged in unfamiliar patterns. He could see a path made of light, stretching away into infinity. "It is open," Maria whispered. "It is actually open." Daniel took a deep breath. He looked back at his team. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. But they were also ready. They had trained for this moment. They had waited for it. "Stay close," Daniel said, "and remember why we are here." He stepped through the doorway. The sensation was strange, like walking through a waterfall made of light. For a moment, Daniel could not see anything. He could not hear anything. He could not feel his own body. And then he was somewhere else. He stood in a garden. It was impossible. He was standing on solid ground, breathing air, feeling warmth on his face. But he had just stepped through a portal on a dead moon with no atmosphere. Nothing about this made sense. The garden stretched in every direction, farther than he could see. There were trees with silver leaves, and flowers in colors he had never seen before. There was grass beneath his feet, soft and green. And above him, in a sky of pale purple, 2 suns burned side by side. Maria stepped through the portal behind him. Then Nathan, Then the rest of the team, one by one, they all stopped and stared at the impossible beauty around them. "This is not real," Nathan said. "This cannot be real." "It is real," said a voice. Daniel turned. Standing in the center of the garden, waiting for them, was a figure. It looked almost human, but not quite. It was taller, thinner, with skin the color of polished bronze. Its eyes were large and deep, filled with colors that shifted like the portal's surface. It wore simple white robes, and it stood with the patience of someone who had been waiting for a very long time. "Welcome," the figure said. Its voice was soft, musical, unlike anything Daniel had ever heard. "We have been expecting you." Daniel stepped forward carefully. "Who are you?" "I am called a Watcher," the figure replied. "My people were known as the Etheri. We built the portal network millions of years ago, when your ancestors were still learning to walk." "There is more than one portal?" The Watcher smiled. "There are thousands. They connect worlds across the galaxy, places of beauty and wonder and terrible danger. We built them to help the species that would come after us, but we could not give such power to just anyone." "So you created a test," Daniel said. "Yes, a test that could only be passed by those who possess the one quality we valued above all others. The willingness to sacrifice for strangers, the ability to care about those you will never know." Nathan shook his head in amazement. "And in 3,000 years, we are the only ones who passed?" The Watcher's expression became sad. "Many species are intelligent, many are powerful, many have accomplished great things, but most of them care only for their own kind. They protect their families, their tribes, their nations. They do not extend that protection to those outside their group." Pause. "And humans do?" Daniel asked. Pause. "Your species is unique," the Watcher said. "You have a capacity for empathy that extends beyond boundaries. You feel pain when strangers suffer. You celebrate when strangers succeed. It is a small thing, perhaps, but it is also the rarest thing in the universe." Daniel thought about Earth, about all the problems humans had caused each other throughout history. The wars, the cruelty, the endless suffering. How could the Watcher say humans were special when they had done so much harm? As if reading his thoughts, the Watcher continued, "You are not perfect. No species is. But perfection was never the test. The test was potential. The test was whether you could be better. And your species, despite all its flaws, keeps trying to be better. That is what makes you worthy." Maria stepped forward. "What happens now?" "Why did you bring us here?" The Watcher's smile returned, and this time there was something else in its eyes. Something that looked like hope. "Now," it said, "you inherit everything. Colony Veshra was a beautiful world. It had blue oceans and green forests and mountains that touched the clouds. 30 million people called it home. Farmers tended fields of grain that stretched to the horizon. Children played in parks, while their parents worked in factories and offices and shops. None of them knew that death was coming for them. The Cathari Armada dropped out of hyperspace at dawn on the 7th day. 900 warships, each one bristling with weapons. 500,000 warriors, each one hungry for blood. They had come to kill everything on the planet below. They had done it 47 times before. They expected to do it again. They did not expect to find a fleet waiting for them. Admiral Patricia Cole stood on the bridge of the UEN Valiant, humanity's flagship. It was larger than the Endeavour, nearly half a mile long, with weapons that could punch through a moon. Around her, human officers worked alongside alien counterparts who had volunteered to observe their methods. Commander Vexlar stood near the back of the bridge. He had asked to be here. He wanted to see how humans fought. "All ships, this is Admiral Cole," the Admiral said into the fleet-wide communication channel. The Cathari believe they are predators. Today, we teach them what it means to become prey. She paused. All units, engage. The battle began. The Cathari charged forward in their typical formation, a massive wedge designed to punch through enemy lines and scatter them like leaves in a storm. It had worked against every enemy they had ever faced. It did not work today. The human ships did not try to meet them head-on. Instead, they scattered, breaking into small groups of 3 or 4 that darted around the edges of the Cathari formation. They struck at the flanks, at the rear, at any ship that strayed too far from its neighbors. The Concordat ships provided supporting fire, but it was the humans who did the real damage. Their railguns tore through Cathari armor like it was paper. Their missiles found weak points that the Cathari did not know they had. Their electronic warfare systems blinded sensors and disrupted communications. Within the first hour, 50 Cathari ships were destroyed. Lieutenant Commander Derek Shaw of the UEN Horizon led one of the assault groups. His ship was smaller than most, built for speed rather than firepower. He used it like a knife, slipping between the massive Cathari vessels and striking at their engines, their weapon systems, their command centers. Horizon to Valiant, Shaw reported. We have disabled the enemy flagship's main weapons array, requesting permission to finish them off. Negative, Horizon, Cole replied. Keep them alive for now. I want their commander to watch his fleet die. Shaw grinned. Understood, Admiral. Horizon out. The battle raged for hours. The Cathari fought back with desperate fury. They landed several hits on human ships, disabling some and destroying others. But for every human vessel they killed, they lost a dozen of their own. By the 6th hour, the Cathari had lost 300 ships. By the 10th hour, they had lost 500. By the 12th hour, they were in full retreat. But not all of them ran. Before the orbital battle was won, the Cathari had managed to land invasion forces on the planet's surface. 50,000 warriors made it through the defenses and began marching toward the capital city. The civilians had been evacuated, but the city itself was about to become a battlefield. Sergeant First Class Tony Vega led the 42nd Marine Division into the streets. He was a big man with scarred hands and tired eyes. He had been fighting since he was 17 years old. He had seen friends die. He had killed more enemies than he could count. But he had never faced anything like the Cathari. The first wave hit them at the city's outer perimeter. 100 warriors, each one 12 feet of claws and teeth and armor. They charged with terrible speed, their roars shaking the buildings around them. Vega did not flinch. Hold the line, he ordered. Wait for my signal. The Cathari came closer. 200 meters, 100 meters, 50 meters. Now. The Marines opened fire. Armor-piercing rounds found the gaps between Cathari plates. Grenades exploded beneath armored feet. Snipers on rooftops picked off warriors who tried to flank the human positions. The first wave died in minutes. The second wave was larger. 200 warriors, supported by heavy weapons that could level buildings. They came from 3 directions at once, trying to surround the human positions. Vega had anticipated this. Fall back to secondary positions, he ordered. Lead them into the kill zone. The Marines retreated, and the Cathari followed. They thought the humans were running. They thought victory was close. They were wrong. The kill zone was a plaza in the center of the outer district. The buildings around it had been rigged with explosives. The streets leading in had been mined. Every window, every doorway, every shadow held a Marine waiting for the signal. When the Cathari filled the plaza, Vega gave the order. Light them up. The explosions came first, bringing down buildings on the Cathari flanks. Then the mines, turning the streets into walls of fire. Then the Marines, pouring fire into the trapped warriors from every direction. The Cathari commander, a massive warlord named Skarath, survived the initial assault. He rallied his remaining warriors and pushed forward, fighting through the human lines with savage determination. He was looking for the human leader. He wanted to kill the one responsible for this disaster. He found Vega in the ruins of a government building, directing the defense from behind a pile of rubble. "Human," Skarath roared, "face me." Vega looked up at the Cathari warlord. Skarath was massive, easily twice his size, covered in black armor and dripping with the blood of fallen Marines. Vega smiled. "All right," he said, "let us do this." He stepped out from behind the rubble and raised his combat knife. The fight lasted 4 minutes. Skarath had centuries of experience. He had killed thousands of enemies in single combat. He had never been defeated. Vega had something the Cathari did not understand. He had human stubbornness. Skarath struck first, his claws slashing through the air where Vega's head had been a moment before. Vega ducked, rolled, and came up inside the warlord's guard. His knife found a gap in the armor and bit deep. Skarath roared and struck again. This time he connected, sending Vega flying into a wall. The Marine hit hard, felt ribs crack, tasted blood in his mouth. He got up anyway. "That all you got?" Vega asked. The fight continued. Vega took wound after wound, cuts and gashes that would have killed a lesser man. But he refused to fall. Every time Skarath knocked him down, he stood back up. Every time the warlord thought he had won, Vega attacked again. Finally, Vega saw his opening. Skarath overextended on a strike, leaving his throat exposed for just a moment. A moment was all Vega needed. His knife found the gap between the warlord's head and body armor. He drove it home with all his remaining strength. Skarath fell. The remaining Cathari saw their commander die. They saw the humans standing over his body, bloody and broken, but still alive. They ran. The Battle of Veshra was over. Vega collapsed against a wall, his vision going dark. The last thing he heard before he passed out was the sound of human voices, medics rushing to save him. He smiled. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Veshra, and the galaxy had changed forever. The Cathari horde, once the most feared power in known space, had surrendered unconditionally. Their fleet was destroyed, their armies were scattered, their warlords were dead or captured. For the first time in 400 years, the Outer Rim knew peace. The peace negotiations took place on the Cathari homeworld, a dark planet of jagged mountains and poisonous air. Human diplomats sat across the table from Cathari elders, drafting treaties that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. It was not easy. The Cathari were proud creatures who had never known defeat. Many of them wanted to keep fighting, to die with honor rather than accept humiliation. But their eldest leader, an ancient warrior named Tarveth, understood the truth. The humans had beaten them not through luck or trickery, but through superior tactics, superior technology, and superior will. Fighting them further would only lead to extinction. "We accept your terms," Tarveth said at the final signing ceremony. His voice was heavy with age and sorrow. "The Cathari will lay down their weapons. We will pay reparations to the worlds we have damaged. We will submit to Concordat oversight." He looked at Admiral Cole, who sat across from him. "But I must know, human, why do you show us mercy? We killed your people. We destroyed your ships. If our positions were reversed, we would have wiped you out without hesitation." Cole considered the question for a long moment. "Because that is not who we are," she said finally. "Humanity has done terrible things in its history. We have made mistakes that cost millions of lives. But we have also learned from those mistakes. We know what happens when you push a defeated enemy too far. We know that cruelty breeds resentment, and resentment breeds revenge." She leaned forward. "We did not come back to the stars to become monsters, Tarveth. We came back to build something better. And that includes giving you the chance to be part of it." Tarveth was silent for a long time. Then, slowly, he bowed his massive head. "Perhaps," he said, "there is more to humans than the old stories said." 2 weeks later, the Galactic Concordat held a ceremony on Station Kairos. Representatives from all 12 species gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall, just as they had 6 months before. But this time, there was no debate. There was no argument. There was only celebration. Chancellor Gormoth raised his crystalline arms, and the hall fell silent. "Today," he announced, "the Galactic Concordat officially welcomes humanity as its 14th member species. After 3,000 years of silence, after 3,000 years of wondering whether the legends were true, we finally have our answer." He turned to face the human delegation. "Humanity has returned, and we are grateful to call them our friends." The hall erupted in applause. Species that had been enemies for generations stood side by side, united by a common purpose. Rear Admiral Daniel Morrison, recently promoted for his actions during the war, stood at the front of the human delegation. He shook hands with alien leaders whose species he had only read about in history books. He accepted congratulations from warriors who had once considered humans to be nothing more than bedtime stories. It was strange, wonderful and terrifying and strange. Afterward, he found himself standing on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. The station's docking ports were filled with ships from a dozen different species. Human vessels sat alongside Zorvani cruisers and Vethkai transports and crystalline science ships. A new galaxy, a new era. Lieutenant Katie Reyes joined him, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. She offered him one, and he accepted it with a grateful nod. "Strange, is it not?" she said. "A year ago we were myths, ghost stories told to frighten young cadets. Now we are signing treaties and hosting diplomatic dinners." Morrison sipped his coffee and smiled. "The galaxy thought we were extinct. They underestimated us. They always do." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the ships come and go. "What happens now?" Reyes asked eventually. Morrison thought about the question. Out there, beyond the borders of Concordat space, other threats waited. Other tyrants, other monsters. The Cathari had been defeated, but they were not the only dangerous species in the universe. The ancient ruins on forgotten worlds. The signals from distant stars that no one had ever been able to decode. The questions about who had built the first hyperspace gates, and what had happened to them. Humanity had spent centuries believing they were alone in the universe. Now they knew better. And now they had a chance to explore, to learn, to grow. "Now we do what humans have always done," Morrison said. "We protect the people who cannot protect themselves. We build, we explore, we make allies out of enemies." He raised his coffee cup in a quiet toast. "And when the next threat comes, we will be ready." Across the galaxy, humanity was spreading. On 100 worlds, human settlers were building new homes. Scientists like Dr. Marcus Flynn worked alongside alien colleagues, unlocking the secrets of technologies that had been abandoned for millennia. Engineers designed new ships that combined human ingenuity with alien materials. Diplomats, like Dr. Samantha Price, worked to strengthen the bonds between species that had once been strangers. And in the military academies, a new generation of warriors was being trained. Young men and women who had grown up hearing stories about the Battle of Veshra, about Sergeant Vega's legendary duel with Scarrath, about the day humanity proved it belonged among the stars. Sergeant First Class Tony Vega, now recovered from his injuries, stood before a class of new recruits on the training world of Nova Scotia Prime. His scars had healed, but the memories remained fresh. "The galaxy thought we were weak," he told them. "They thought we were fragile. They thought we would be easy to break." He looked at the young faces before him. Some were nervous, some were eager, all of them were human. They were wrong. We are not the biggest species in the galaxy. We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest or the toughest or the smartest. He paused. But we are stubborn. We do not give up. We do not surrender. When we are knocked down, we get back up. When we lose, we learn from our mistakes and come back stronger. He straightened his back and lifted his chin. That is what it means to be human. That is why the Kethari fell. That is why every enemy who underestimates us will fall. He smiled. Now let us get to work. Far away, on Station Kairos, Admiral Cole stood before a holographic map of the known galaxy. Human territory was marked in blue, spreading slowly outward from their core worlds. Concordat space surrounded them, a patchwork of colors representing the different member species. And beyond the borders, in the darkness between the stars, something was watching. Cole did not know what it was, but the long-range sensors had picked up strange signals, patterns that did not match any known species. Somewhere out there, something else was waiting. The old threats were gone, but new ones would always arise. Cole was not afraid. Humanity had faced extinction before. They had faced enemies that should have been impossible to defeat. They had survived and thrived and grown stronger. They would do it again. She turned away from the map and walked back to her office. There was work to be done. Treaties to negotiate, fleets to build, alliances to strengthen. The myths had become real, and the galaxy would never be the same. The old stories said that humans were monsters. For 3,000 years, the species of the Galactic Concordat had told tales about creatures from a forgotten world called Terra. Parents whispered these stories to their children at night. Teachers spoke of them in history classes. Soldiers joked about them in barracks across 100 worlds. The humans, they said, were weak. They had soft skin that could be cut by a simple blade. They had no claws. They had no fangs. They could not see in the dark. They could not breathe underwater. They could not survive in the cold vacuum of space without machines to help them. But the old texts also spoke of something else. Something that made even the bravest warriors feel a chill in their bones. The humans, they said, never stopped fighting. They had once burned their own world in wars that lasted for generations. They had split atoms and created weapons that could destroy entire cities in the blink of an eye. They had walked on their own moon before most species in the galaxy had learned to make fire. And then, one day, they had simply vanished. The coordinates to their home system led to empty space. Their colonies went dark. Their ships stopped appearing in the trade routes. Within a few centuries, most scholars agreed that humans had destroyed themselves. It was the only explanation that made sense. After all, a species that violent could not have survived for long. Commander Vexlar of the Zorvani Empire did not believe in myths. He was a practical creature, standing 7 feet tall, with gray-green scales and 4 yellow eyes that could see in complete darkness. He had served in the Imperial Navy for 40 years. He had fought in 12 wars. He had seen things that would break the minds of lesser beings. But he did not believe in humans. He stood on the bridge of his warship, the Crimson Fang, watching the stars drift past the main view screen. His ship was one of the finest in the Zorvani fleet. It carried 2,000 crew members and enough firepower to reduce a small moon to rubble. His second-in-command, a younger officer named Shentok, approached him with a data tablet in his clawed hands. "Commander," Shentok said, "we have intercepted a strange signal from the outer rim." Vexlar took the tablet and studied it. The signal was old, very old. It used frequency patterns that had not been used in centuries. His translation software struggled to decode the language, but eventually it produced a result. "This is Captain Daniel Morrison of the United Earth Navy vessel Endeavour. To any ships receiving this transmission, we are engaging hostile forces in Sector 7. We do not require assistance. We are simply letting you know. Humanity has returned." Vexlar read the message 3 times. Then he read it again. "Is this some kind of joke?" he asked. Shentok shifted nervously on his feet. "I do not know, Commander. The signal appears to be genuine. It originated from deep inside Cathari territory." The Cathari. Vexlar felt his scales tighten at the name. The Cathari horde was the greatest threat the Galactic Concordat had ever faced. They were predators from a nightmare. Each one stood 12 feet tall on 8 powerful legs. Their bodies were covered in black armor that could deflect plasma fire. Their mouths were filled with rows of teeth that could bite through solid steel. For the past century, the Cathari had been sweeping through the outer rim, destroying everything in their path. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They simply killed and moved on to the next world. The Concordat had tried to stop them many times. The Cathari were too strong, too fast, and too many. And now someone was claiming to be fighting them. Someone who called themselves human. "Set a course for Sector 7, Vexlar ordered. Shentok's eyes went wide. "Commander, that is deep inside Cathari space. If we are detected, we will be destroyed." "I am aware of the risks," Vexlar said. "But I need to see this for myself. If there is even a small chance that this signal is real, I must know." The Crimson Fang changed course and jumped into hyperspace. The journey took 3 days. During that time, Vexlar found himself unable to sleep. He kept returning to the old texts in the ship's library, reading everything he could find about humans. The more he read, the more confused he became. The texts described humans as small and fragile. They described them as emotional and irrational. They described them as primitive compared to the other species of the galaxy. But they also described something else. Something that did not fit with the rest of the picture. Humans, the text said, had a concept called war that was different from any other species. For most beings in the galaxy, war was a last resort. It was something to be avoided if possible. It was expensive, dangerous, and wasteful. For humans, war was something else entirely. It was an art form. It was a science. It was a way of life that they had practiced and perfected over thousands of years. They had developed strategies and tactics that no other species had ever imagined. They had built weapons of incredible power and destruction. They had trained their soldiers to fight in conditions that would kill most other beings. And most importantly, they had learned to never, ever give up. One passage in particular stayed with Vexlar's mind long after he had finished reading it. It was a quote attributed to a human leader from long ago, though Vexlar could not verify its accuracy. "When you think you have beaten the human," the quote said, "that is when they are most dangerous. Because a human who has nothing left to lose is a human who will burn down the entire universe just to take you with them." Vexlar did not know if this was true, but he was about to find out. The Crimson Fang dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sector 7. The bridge fell silent as the view screen filled with the image before them. He had expected to find debris and destruction, and the scattered remains of whatever foolish vessel had tried to fight the Cathari. What he found instead made his heart stop beating for a full 3 seconds. The Cathari fleet was there, 200 warships, each one capable of destroying a small planet. They filled the space before him like a swarm of angry insects. But they were not moving. They were dead. Some had been cut cleanly in half, as if sliced by a giant blade. Others had holes punched through their hulls, holes so large that Vexlar could see the stars on the other side. Still others were simply dark, their power cores destroyed, their lights extinguished. And at the center of this graveyard of ships sat a single vessel. It was small, tiny even, perhaps 1/5 the size of a Zorvani cruiser. Its hull was gray and plain, marked with strange symbols that Vexlar's computer struggled to translate. Finally, the translation came through. UEN Endeavor. The myths were real. The humans had returned.